So apparently we're playing a different campaign now. Yeah. So you might remember that we were working through the Dragon's Dogma campaign, um, which was kind of a homebrew D&D version of the Dragon's Dogma video game. Unfortunately, the DM has been taken quite ill and he's in hospital at the moment. Very sad, and we hope he gets better. But in the meantime, life goes on, and one of the other members of the party, quite an experienced DM, he volunteered to just run like a mini campaign, just do a few sessions of something else to kind of bide time until our main DM gets out of hospital. And just for the sake of things, keep things nice and easy, we thought, well, let's do a campaign which is like a book module. It's pre-written, something that he's run before, something that he knows inside and out, something that can be kind of picked up and dropped as and when, so not particularly story heavy, kind of a dungeon crawler. So long story short, we've decided to go with Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I've previously played Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I took a character all the way through to 6th level when that finished. So we were like, well, maybe you could take that character and bring it into Dungeon of the Mad Mage. In the end, I decided not to do that, just because that character happened to be a fighter, and I'm playing a fighter in the Dragon's Dogma campaign. I thought, you know what, like if we're just going to have a bit of a palate cleanser for a couple of weeks just to change things up, I want to be something a bit different. So I decided instead that what I would do is bring back a character which I previously used in a one-shot about 1.5 years ago for a Halloween-themed one-shot. Because he's a one-shot character, doesn't have a lot of depth to him. Dawn Basteling, that's his name. He is a dwarven gravekeeper. He works at the cemetery, quite Halloween-themed there. And his whole shtick is that he's just this really rough, dirty, smelly guy. He kind of looks a bit like Hagrid from Harry Potter, but a dwarf, crossed with Mr. Twit from the Twits, Roald Dahl's The Twits. He looks like he hasn't had a bath in years, covered in mud, really smelly, and he's got like flies buzzing around him all the time, visible stink lines basically. And he's actually a swarm keeper. That's his subclass. He's a ranger swarm keeper. His whole thing is he is a cemetery keeper. He puts bodies into the ground and makes sure that they stay there, So all of the different spells that he has are like themed around this like swarm of flies that follows him. That's his swarm. It's quite gross, really, because like he'll like open up his trench coat, and this biblical swarm of flies just buzzes out. So it's a one-shot character. It's a bit over the top and crazy, but it is a lot of fun to play. Because I'll play him like Grant from EastEnders, like this, and he don't take no nonsense from no one, Yeah, you what? He's annoyed with those kids, those darn kids, those necromancers. They come to his cemetery. They won't leave the dead in the ground, will they? He puts them in the ground, and they come along and they keep resurrecting them. Well, screw this. He's going to find another line of work. He's going to go get some treasure from the Undermountain. Yeah, it's bound to be a better line of work. So that's what he does, and he fights with this shovel, +1 shovel that he uses like a great club. Bessie. His shovel doesn't actually use the shovel to put people in the ground, though. He would never harm his Bessie by actually putting her, into shoveling dirt with her. No, for that he just uses the cantrip Mold Earth, and that's how he buries people. So it was really good. I do like playing him because sometimes it's nice to have one-shot characters. Like I say, a bit of a palate cleanser. It's a very different vibe. So when you've got a serious, long-term, slow-burn character with a very detailed backstory, sometimes you just want to play a smelly gravekeeper. And, that they say there's a bit of you in every character you make. I guess a bit of me is a smelly gravekeeper. What can I say? So yeah, what can I say about this? Dungeon of the Mad Mage, for those that don't know, it is a dungeon crawler. There's 23 levels of dungeons, non-stop dungeons, and you go all the way from levels 5 up to 20. So we started at level 5, which is good because level 5, I feel, is the sweet spot for D&D. That's when D&D properly kicks off. Like level 1 is a starter, like prologue area. Level 3 is when you get your subclasses properly and you start to flesh yourself out. Level 5 is when your characters actually gain the abilities that really make them who they are. You get, like, if you're a spellcaster, you get your level 2 spells. If you are a fighter or a martial class, you get your second attack. Suddenly you get way more options, plus the ASI, the previous level, and you're suddenly all singing, all dancing, and you've suddenly the options to multi-class, and it's a little bit more, you've got more freedom to be who you want to be. So we're starting at level 5, and like I say, it's a bit of a dungeon crawler. I'm not sure if this campaign would keep my interest up for an entire campaign, because it does feel quite one note, and it is just literally floor after floor after floor of dungeons. It's like room after room after room, enemies, puzzles, enemies. I'm sure there's other interesting things further down, but and to be fair, it is a really well designed dungeon from what I've seen. It's just I don't know how much that would keep my interest for like forever. I am ultimately the sort of player that really likes a story above and beyond everything else. Like, that's why I play D&D, is for the stories. But as a dungeon crawler, it's a really good one. Really well designed, really well done, and a very different vibe to the campaign that we were playing. When we talk about a palate cleanser, the Dragon's Dogma campaign, if you follow my other videos there, very slow burn. It took us 3 sessions to reach level 1. So essentially, I guess you could say we had 3 session zeros before we actually had a first session. Very slow burn, constantly like describing how our characters are reacting to things, how our characters are feeling about things. This, much more matter of fact. We got through more combat, more rooms, more things in just 2.5 hours, because it was a shorter session than normal because one of the people was late. So in a shorter time, we got through way more than we have in 4 sessions of a full campaign. And that's partially due to the DM's style. He wasn't really one for flavor text. He's very like matter of fact, by the book. He's just like, okay, you see a corridor, 60 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. You see this, you see this, you see this. And then you're like, okay, what happens over here? And then he'll say, oh, over there is a statue with missing a head. You're like, okay, and what do I say over here? Roll perception. Okay, over there you see this. It's very bum matter of fact, which is good. It's definitely a different vibe. Like I say, the way that he does combat as well, it's very like this. You can tell that he's an experienced DM because he tells you what you need to know in those moments. Very matter of fact. I mean, I don't know how much enjoyment he gets out of it. I guess he must get a lot of enjoyment out of DMing because he does it a lot, and he has been doing it for a long time. There's a very clinical efficiency in how he runs his games, which I do appreciate, because, it means then that there's more space and more time for you as a role player kind of react to things. And I would say I had more interactions with the rest of the party in just these 2.5 hours than I have had in 4 sessions of the other campaign, because the DM was just very matter of fact. Okay, you go into a room, you see 4 goblins. He's not describing things, he just assumes we know what these things are. He's not trying to be Matt Mercer here, he's just playing a game. We all know what goblins are. You see 4 goblins when you walk in, he's not trying to evoke some feelings like these strange creatures that you've never seen before, that smell in the air, lingering like death. What could that be? A strange metallic sound clanging in the distance. There it is again. Some people like that sort of vibe. Some people, you walk into the room, there's a noose, you know? So that's how he played it. And like I say, I think all of us at the table were kind of playing one-shotty characters. So we had one person who was playing basically a gay pirate. He was like a swashbuckler, very Errol Flynn type, I guess. So my character absolutely took an instant hatred towards him. To be fair, my character hates everyone. And the only thing he respects is dead bodies. He has a lot of reverence and respect for the dead. Put them in the ground, let them be. But living people, he has no time for the living. And so, yeah, my character hated him. And there were some really good interactions there. The other guy was initially playing a paladin, a dwarf paladin. However, in the very first combat, in the very first room, we encountered some bugbears. Upon killing the bugbears, it turned out that they were... I can't remember the actual name for them. They were like these brain dogs, basically. The bugbears had been taken over by these kind of like brains, which then did a kind of psychic wave brain attack. Again, I can't remember the actual terminology, on the paladin and myself. I managed to pass that intelligence saving throw. Thank God. He failed. And then in the subsequent roll, drained his intelligence down to 0. So in just one combat, we lost our first character, essentially. Not dead, technically. Just a vegetable. So we looted his body, which is nice. We now have a lot of gold. And I have +1 plate armor, which is lovely. Yay! Yay for having an uncommon item at level 1. So yeah, we sent him back up to the surface, and shortly after we received a new party member. It's one of those kinds of campaigns, you know? So like I say, a very different vibe, because there's no like time to get attached to these characters. It is a meat grinder down here. I'm fully expecting a high churn rate, so I'm not expecting, you know, development of our backstories and delving into who makes us. Dragon's Dogma campaign, I'm fully expecting all of that stuff to come up, you know? On this one, it's just about fighting some bugbears, you know? So yeah, we got instead, we received a wizard, a tiefling wizard. Again, my character hated him. This time for a very different reason. We had a very fun argument at one point where the guy was telling me, he was like, knowledge is power. And I was like, what are you talking about? Power is power. Knowledge is knowledge. Like, you want power? Get power. And then later on, he wanted to do a spell, and he's like, well, I don't know this spell. I'm not a powerful enough wizard. And I just was like, oh, what's that? What's that? You're not powerful enough, but you don't have enough knowledge, yeah? I'm just that kind of grouchy old grumpy dwarf. Yeah, so we went through a few rooms. There were a couple of distractions along the way. We went, you know, around. We found some goblins. We went through various rooms. Everyone's trip down into the Underdark is going to be different because there's multiple paths you can take. So I'm not going to do a play-by-play. Just sufficient to know we went through probably about 10-ish rooms in total and had about 3 or 4 combats along the way, the last of which was quite a big one. It's the sort of combat that isn't difficult, but it just whittles away at your resources. So after like those 4 combats, I've rolled about half of my hit dice. I've sustained about maybe 20% damage, and I've lost about half of my spell slots. So it's that kind of like slow burn. You're just slowly being whittled down, you know. Normally that wouldn't be a problem, losing your spell slots as a ranger. But I am kind of a spellcasting ranger. Swarm Keeper is a bit of a weird one, and I have a druidic fighting style, so I'm basically a half caster here. So yeah, it's a really, really fun time, and I'm expecting that we're probably going to do a few sessions here. While our main DM is in hospital. He's got quite a bad infection, unfortunately, so he's getting better, and in the meantime we're doing this bit of a palate cleanser, going through a few more floors, and at any point we can just drop it go back to the Dragon's Dogma campaign. But I am actually really enjoying this Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and I don't know. I feel because we kind of just landed in it randomly. It was just like, oh, the guy's in hospital. Let's just do this. And so none of us really prepped for it. Like we just kind of pulled characters out of thin air. Literally, the guy playing the gay pirate, he was making his character sheet on the bus. I feel we didn't really put a lot of thought into who we're playing or what we're doing. I feel it would be nice to do with this new DM. It would be nice to do a campaign properly from the beginning, with a proper like session 0, introducing the party to each other. That would be cool. Instead, it by its nature, it's quite rushed. It's just like, okay, you're in the dungeon, let's go. So yeah, really, really liking it. It's a lot of fun. Very, very different vibe to what I'm used to from other campaigns I've run, but that's not a bad thing at all. See where it goes from here. And hopefully no more character deaths. Not from me anyway. I've never had a character death. That's goading the DM. None of my characters have ever died, DM. Bring it.